Is your team struggling with cold calling and cold email? Let's talk about some alternative demand channels in this episode of Closing Time. Hey, thanks for tuning into Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. I'm Geoff Coutts, SVP of Sales and Customer Operations for Unbounce and Insightly. Today I'm joined by Chris Merrill, CEO of Better Media. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks a lot for having me, Geoff. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you on the show. Maybe just to jump right in, Chris, I can't speak for all sales teams out there, but cold calling and cold emailing seem to be tougher than ever. There's just so much noise in the system and everybody's trying so hard. There's got to be a better solution than simply trying more volume and trying to be louder than everybody else. We all get inundated in our inboxes from all sorts of different creative ways of looking at this. How do you view it?
So what I'm not going to do is sit here and do the whole cold calling's dead, cold emailing's dead, outbound is dead. It's not dead. It's just like you said, it's harder than it's been in the past. And let's look at why. And again, one of the things is I'm a part of the problem. I've been a part of the problem. I am a spam cannon. I've been building funnels and pushing volume. I've done the quality quantity spectrum. But let's just think about it. First, we brought in some automation with these send tools. Then data got really inexpensive, right? So we automatically just started pushing out volume then. Now you added this layer of cost in terms of the development cost. We allowed PLG motions that gave everybody access to these tools. You know, for $30 a month, maybe $50, $100 for some credits, you can send out a pretty meaningful amount of volume. You know, you do that on the email side, similar on the call side with the dialers. And what does that do? It allows everybody just to increase their volume. All it's doing is raising the audible floor. The audible floor is louder. What does it do for you and I, Geoff? When we open up our inboxes in the morning, we're not going through and trying to get rid of the noise. We're only looking for the things that feel familiar to us. We're subconsciously competent, and to the point of we're not actually reading messages, we're pattern recognizing what they look like. And so at this point, you have to find a way to punch through. I do want to be heard. Cold calling still works. Cold emailing still works, but you have to find a very specific approach that works for you and your target, and not everybody is up for that task.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. And I know you've got some great ideas to generate pipeline that are beyond emails and calls. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit, get into some of the details.
Sure.
Why don't we start with live events, one that I know that's close to your heart.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, to say we doubled down on it would be underselling it, right? Like we are as all in as it gets. And I'd love to say that it was some soothsayer, some sage that said that we're in this protected medium for a little bit. It really isn't the case. We had looked at and really drove webinars looking back 5-7 years ago. We looked at these. There was an open channel for us to start doing really, really dedicated content in the sales space, and we started doing webinars with some of the big brands. But we were measured by audience reach, by engagement. Maybe we were in there talking about how we might have affected a deal, or we were attributed to some deal flow. But we really were predicated and measured on registration, and reach. And then all of a sudden, I remember it was shortly before COVID hit. I noticed more than we'd be in the middle of a review meeting, and all of a sudden the door would open and this new title would walk in the room, and it was, "Hey guys, meet our CRO." And the CRO would say, "Chris, I love what you guys are doing for us. Your shows, the registration, thousands of people are coming to these things." And he'd hold up this whack-looking graph, and he'd say, but we're just not getting the direct attribution to pipeline." And we would look around and be like, we're not, we're competitive. We weren't measuring for that. And it was at that moment that we really started to understand that if they were looking for this marketing spend to be so directly in line, we better figure out how to directly drive opportunities, not just marketing outcomes, drive opportunities. And so for the last 5 to 7 years, we've really been working with brands to understand how can we use the programming, the people on the shows, the content, matched up with the product to really drive right into pipeline. And so it's something that nothing new to us. We've been running this motion for quite some time. And what has evolved is as cold calling and emailing and these other channels have gotten harder, we believe that people look at running webinars and looking at running live content as being both laborious and expensive. And the truth of it is, it really isn't. I mean, think about, you can light up a Riverside, you can light up a Zoom, and all you really need to do is have knowledge. And if you have knowledge, share it. And if you don't have the knowledge, get curious and you can drive a topic. What you just need to understand is a pain or priority for some group of human beings. And that's the other thing is, you can have 20 people. I'm part of a company that does interior design management, the back office, small rooms of 10 to 15 interior designers talking about the best way to, mark up their services or how often they bill their customers. Well, it turns out that the service that the company does is $100,000 a year. They don't need the volume in that room.
Right.
And so if you think about it from a standpoint of, we talk a lot about intent and signal right now, and everybody has the same intent and signals being pushed to them. But what is a better intent or a signal than somebody choosing to spend the most valuable resource they have, their time, 45 minutes, an hour on a very narrow subject that they're registering for, they're coming and attending, they're filling out polls, they're in the chat. There's so many reasons. There's so many avenues to use that to then drive those opportunities, right?
Right. That's high intent. A couple of things you said really resonated with me. One is the attribution concept. You probably know, we're in the attribution business. We have great marketing attribution solutions that we sell to our customers and our agencies, and being able to justify the ROI on the spend is really important. So that hit me square in the nose. The other thing is, being a sales leader, I care most about what will convert into opportunities. So that piece of it really resonated. And of course, my partner in crime on the marketing side, we work really closely to say what's driving brand awareness, what's driving actual opportunities in the pipeline that we can close. And we have that discussion all the time. So really valuable. Talk us through just a little bit how some of these events we're talking about, like webinars or training events or coaching seminars, how can they be cost effective in building the pipeline?
Sure. So there's two ways I look at it. One, you do not need an expensive stack to do these things. We've played this game quite a bit with either friends who are firing up companies for side projects for ourselves, thinking if we didn't have the budget, if we didn't have the tools and the things that we built, what channels would we use to get our first 10 customers? And to be honest with you, it wouldn't be email. It wouldn't be calls. I know that lift. It would be a podcast. It would be an in-person small meetup. It would be a webinar. And so first of all, you can just take the cost of running these things out. The second piece is, well, you have to build an audience. There's ways to, one, you don't need a huge audience. Two, if you truly know your ICP's pain or priority, you can play to both. You can run 30 minutes on a very narrow pain or a priority because you have to believe that there's other people within your ecosystem that share that. The second piece is to offset cost. Share the burden. One of the best things that we use is something called OPL, other people's lists. It's one of my favorite ways to grow. If you look in our little ecosystem of the creators and influencers and sales trainers we use, the brands that we work with, when we do these things, partner up, find complementary people and brands, and you can use the intersection of my small little audience and your little small audience. And guess what? Over a period of time, you're starting to grow that out. So the fastest path to doing this is partnering up with others that have these lists, because a lot of people will push back on me and say, but if I don't have the audience, how can I drive the people? But there's always a way to kind of grow that part out. And doing that through the OPL has been kind of, it still contributes probably 25-30% of our growth.
That's really creative thinking. I love it. Other people's lists, other people's budgets, all those good things. That's fantastic. Another idea I think you have is around community management, building a community or engaging in other communities to create pipe for yourself. Same kind of concept, maybe leveraging off of partners, I assume, in what you just described there. This one seems like a bit of a longer term play, but also very effective. Would you agree with that?
we can all look back, if you remember, in dating myself at meetup.com. I mean, you don't have to have, this doesn't have to be a big funded, or if it's in person, over the top thing. Getting 10 to 15 people together casually to talk about something that you're passionate about is not a difficult thing. I mean, you can probably walk outside and yell with a megaphone and get enough people to do that. But where it really comes from, growth through community. Because I do think it is something that both individuals within organizations and freelancers can do. It really has to be known. The most powerful people in your ecosystem are the people that are known to be connectors. I was sitting at a startup I was running. It was a version of a service as kind of product in the agency space, staring at a really ugly pipeline. And my mentor came over to me while I'm staring at the wall and basically said, don't know where to start. Go make a connection between two other people. Take yourself out of the value equation, but create value. It costs you zero. When you build community, it's the network effect of that. If you can be the catalyst to getting 10 people together to talk about, it's not that you have to offer, you don't have to train them. You just have to bring them together with common interests, pains, or priorities, foster the conversation. And then what happens is as that grows, you earn the right for the leverage, ask questions, poll, conversations, meetings. Growth by community is very powerful, but it has to be nurtured. It has to be fostered. In my opinion, it also has to be very, very narrow. I think a lot of people who try to do this, they always think, I need this big piece of software to maintain my community, thinking in hundreds and thousands. Community can be small. Think about a book club, the most rudimentary kind of approach to it. And I think, again, these are also things that you can do within your organization. So if you're buried deep down inside of an org, but you're trying to figure out a way to punch through this, build your own humans, build your own cohort, and you'll be surprised of what you can draw from it.
I like that a lot. In the sales cycle, I think a lot, and we talk in my team a lot about a micro community, I might call it, where somebody who's a prospect wants to hear from somebody else who's gone through a similar experience. If they're moving from solution A to solution B, or they've got a similar pain point or similar industry, that's invaluable in the sales cycle. But at a slightly more macro level, to build the communities up front, to create those opportunities, I love what you're saying here. It's really good advice.
Sure. Yeah, one thing real quick on that, that's a fun one as well. Let's just take people who do cold outbound. Get a group together of your same position across other organizations and do 1 hour work together sessions. 10 people on Zoom, all on camera. Everyone explains their intent of what they're going to get done in the hour. And you sit down and you think about like cold calling boiler rooms, right? Like just get out there and do it. They're actually really fun, and it's a great way to kind of, build up some community. And in that sense, you usually earn the right for a conversation.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of sharing of best practices through that as well. That's good advice. So we covered a couple different ways of building pipeline. The next idea might be a little bit different and perhaps maybe add some cost to the equation, but it's around using a gifting service. So I know you've got some advice on that. Yeah. What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So I think the modern way of doing it and the more programmatic is using a platform, a Sendoso, Reachdesk, something like that. And there is a cost basis. What we had growing up was this concept of lumpy mail, which was anything you could do to break the pattern of like the relationship. A oversized pink manila envelope with a handwritten letter inside of it, sending something thoughtful that person may connect with, that something about them. A perfect example here is I had someone banging on me quite a bit to get in for a good sized piece of software. And I was just not having it. I knew they were there. I was acknowledging it. And then one day I got a kid wrapped it up Christmas present and opened it up, and it was an old boot. And I was like, what the hell is this thing? And next thing you know, I found that I was like, it was someone saying I wanted to get my foot in the door. So it doesn't have to be a big cost basis. One of my friends owned a UI company called Fresh Tilled Soil, growing ideas out of the ground. They went and bought cheap Ace Hardware like rakes and hoes, and just think about it. If you were at home or in an office and you got a rake, it's memorable. You're going to know it. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It needs to be thoughtful, connected to the reason you're reaching out. Or And I got to point back. I think you just had John Barrows on. I know that you're doing some work with him. John might be the most thoughtful gift and message writer I've ever met. He just, in his discovery, hangs on every word. He thinks about the words you say. And when he sends you a gift, it always hits, it always connects. And you're going to remember that feeling. You're going to take the call. You're going to have that meeting.
Yeah, that's a great example. I'm on a forum of CROs and we talk about lead gen quite a bit. And I can't tell you the number of sales leaders that are reverting back to something. It's creative and it's thoughtful. It feels like it's old school, but it's very effective because it's standing out from everything else and it's very personalized. That's great.
Yeah, I want to bring lumpy mail back as the
lumpy mail. It's a good term. All right, one last one, maybe an obvious one, podcasting. So what we're doing, but also you do a lot more of it. How do you see moving the needle on pipe gen with podcasting?
So there's three things. One, establishing yourself as it's validating as a thought leader or as a connector. And if you keep your programming, because again, you can just light up your own podcast. It doesn't matter how many download subscribers you have. But if you start having conversations that keep following the same pattern of the things that you talk about and problems you solve, you can use that content to take that content, post it, and farm the comments as people, hey, here was a really great clip from the conversation Geoff and I had. I thought it was really interesting when Chris said XYZ. What do you think? As the comments light up, you can use that as cannon fodder for reaching out. But more importantly, there's two other ways to do it. I just casually dropped, let's just say I was trying to sell into Reach Desk or Sendoso. I'm going to call out Chris from Sendoso right now. After this call, after this goes live, I'm going to grab that clip and I'm going to go back and contextually say, hey, Chris, I don't know if you caught it, but gave you guys a shout out on the podcast. By the way, and you move right back into it. But the third way, the most powerful, but it has to be higher ticket items. It has to be, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Right.
Geoff, after this call, we have a connection. I did not know you before we came on this call.
That's right.
I now know that you were in IT services at HP, right? I now know that in this of who else you've done the podcast. You now know things about me as well. You probably would earn, if we're now trying to bring, and you knew it was contextually appropriate, to bring one of your three platforms to me, something tells me that you and I would be on a call booked for tomorrow.
I agree.
So the fast path there is think about your tier one customers. And again, don't call it in. It's not, I had you on my podcast, let's do business. Contextually appropriate, make them shine. Make them shine, make them shine, make them shine. Clip them up, send it back. I'm telling you, one of the fastest ways, and it's not just bringing them on, it's also bringing on their customers. That's the other thing, bringing on your target customers, and using that as cannon fodder to earn the right for a call.
I love the perspective. It's all about creating that connection, and it's got to be contextually relevant. So that's music to my ears for sure. Chris, I love these ideas, especially because it gives an opportunity for sales and marketing teams to work together on these initiatives. And I've always been a firm believer that pipe gen in general is very much a shared responsibility across the whole go-to-market team. So figuring out the best ways to do it and analyzing that attribution we were talking about earlier, what works and what doesn't. So listen, thanks so much for joining us today on Closing Time. Where can they find you if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think right at Sell Better. From that standpoint, there's programming every day, tons of resources from the new seller all the way up to the experienced veteran. And there's some edutainment in there as well. So the majority of the work we do is all in that area. Yeah.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for tuning in to Closing Time today. Feel free to sign up for the Closing Time newsletter to get this show delivered right to your inbox. Click the link in the show notes right now, and you'll also find clips on Insightly's social media channels. We will see you on the next episode of Closing Time. Have a great day.